I'm holding a seed packet that cost me nothing. Inside it are roughly 80 seeds. Each one will become a plant. Each plant will produce more seeds than I could ever use in a season. And every single one of those seeds is completely, legally mine to save, replant, and give away forever. The variety inside this packet has been grown continuously by Amish and Mennonite families in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania for at least 400 years, maybe longer. The written records only go back that far. I have been gardening for 22 years. I added it up last spring, somewhere in the range of $2,800 on seeds over that time. Annual seed catalogs, online orders, big box garden centers. Every spring, same routine. Open the wallet. 3 years ago, I stopped. Not because I stopped gardening. Because I figured out what the Amish already knew and what a $50 billion seed industry has spent decades making sure you never stop to think about. The problem. Let me ask you something. When you buy a tomato from the grocery store, can you take the seeds from that tomato and grow the same tomato next year? Most people assume yes. The answer, for the majority of commercially grown produce in the United States, is no. And that's not an accident. The seeds used to grow the food you eat every day, supermarket tomatoes, bell peppers, sweet corn, cucumbers. The vast majority of them are F1 hybrid varieties. That stands for first filial generation. They are deliberately bred to be genetically unstable past one growing season. You plant them, they grow, they produce. But when you save those seeds and replant them, you get something completely unpredictable. Smaller fruit, different color, sometimes nothing germinates at all. The desirable traits don't carry through. The seed companies call this hybrid vigor. What it actually means in practice is that you have to buy new seeds every year. Every single year. The American seed market generates over $50 billion annually. A significant portion of that revenue depends on one simple behavioral loop. You run out of seeds, you buy more seeds. You run out of seeds, you buy more seeds. That loop breaks the moment you understand seed saving. And the loop has been carefully protected, legally, commercially, and culturally for almost a century. In 1930, the United States passed the Plant Patent Act. For the first time in American history, living plants could be owned. Varieties could be patented. By the 1970s, the Plant Variety Protection Act extended those protections further, giving seed companies the legal right to prevent farmers from saving and replanting protected varieties. The farmers who had been doing exactly that for 10,000 years of human agriculture. What the Amish did, and what sets them apart from the rest of American agricultural history, is they never stopped. They kept growing the same open-pollinated varieties their great-great-grandparents grew. The same seeds, year after year, saved in paper envelopes, stored in cool, dry cellars, traded between families at church. Not because they were stubborn, because those seeds work. The history. The Amish began settling Lancaster County in the early 1700s. German-speaking Anabaptists from Switzerland and the Alsace region, farmers who brought seed stock with them across the Atlantic. Those seeds had already been cultivated and selected for hundreds of years in European growing conditions. When they arrived in Pennsylvania, they adapted them, slowly, deliberately, over generations, selecting the strongest plants, saving seed from the best performers. Every year, the saved seed got a little more suited to the local climate, the local soil, the local pest pressure. This is what plant breeders call land-race development. It's the oldest form of agriculture on Earth. Farmers selecting seeds not for shelf life or uniform appearance or mechanical harvest, but for flavor, resilience, yield, and adaptability to the land where they actually lived. By the mid-1800s, the Mennonite and Amish communities of Lancaster County had developed varieties so stable and productive that their agricultural output was renowned across the mid-Atlantic states. I found a reference to this in a digitized archive of agricultural reports from the Pennsylvania State Board of Agriculture, 1876 edition. The author notes, with some bewilderment, that Amish farms were consistently outproducing their neighbors on similar land, and that the difference appeared to be in the seeds themselves. Those varieties have names you won't find in any commercial seed catalog today. Mortgage Lifter Amish variants, long red oxheart, speckled Roman, German pink, Brandywine, which most people know, but also its lesser-known cousins that never made it into mainstream distribution because they didn't ship well, didn't look uniform, didn't photograph for a catalog. They just tasted extraordinary, and they grew back true, year after year, from saved seed. When the hybrid seed revolution arrived in the mid-20th century, the commercial logic was overwhelming. Hybrid varieties produced dramatically higher yields under industrial conditions, monoculture rows, mechanical harvest, long-distance transport. Seed companies lobbied hard. Land-grant universities shifted their research toward hybrids. County extension agents promoted the new varieties, and within 2 generations, the open-pollinated varieties that American farmers had grown for centuries became specialty items, sold in small packets by mail-order seed libraries, while the Amish quietly kept growing the originals. The seed. What I'm about to tell you is not complicated. It is so simple that the first time I understood it, I felt genuinely foolish for not having thought of it earlier. An open-pollinated seed, also called an heirloom seed if it predates roughly 1951, is a seed that breeds true, meaning, if you plant it, grow it out, and save seed from the best fruit, and plant those seeds next year, you get the same plant, same flavor, same growth habit, same characteristics, stable across generations. That's it. That's the whole secret. A single heirloom tomato plant, given adequate space and care, will produce somewhere between 20 and 40 fruits over a season. Each fruit contains 50 to 200 seeds. Of those, you only need to save seeds from 2 or 3 of your best, most robust, best-tasting fruits to have more seeds than you can plant in a decade. I keep a small glass jar in my refrigerator. Inside it are paper envelopes, each one labeled in pencil. German Johnson tomato, dragon tongue bean, glass gem corn, a variety originally developed by the Cherokee people and almost lost before a seed saver in Oklahoma rescued it in the 1990s. Mortgage lifter, bred by a West Virginia farmer named Radiator Charlie in the 1930s, who sold enough plants to pay off his $6,000 mortgage. Every seed in that jar cost me nothing after the first year. I paid once. I saved seed. I replanted. I saved again. The initial investment, maybe $35 for a starter collection, has now seeded 3 years of full garden production. At current seed catalog prices, that same collection would cost me $90 to $110 annually. Over 10 years, $1,100 in seeds I will never need to buy. But there's a second dimension to this that I didn't understand until I actually started growing these varieties side by side with modern hybrids. The flavor is not the same. It is not even close to the same. The flavor science. In 2012, a research team at the University of Florida published a study in the journal Science that analyzed the volatile compounds responsible for tomato flavor. They identified a set of 13 chemical compounds that human taste receptors associate with tomato flavor. Several of them were present at dramatically lower concentrations in modern commercial tomato varieties compared with older heirloom types. The reason is not mystery. It's selection pressure. Commercial tomato breeding since the 1950s has selected relentlessly for traits that have nothing to do with eating quality. Uniform ripening so machines can harvest the whole field at once. Thick skin so fruit survives transport without bruising. Extended shelf life so it can sit in a distribution warehouse for 2 weeks before reaching the store. Every time a breeder selected for those traits, they were not selecting for flavor. And because flavor compounds are genetically linked to other traits, every generation of selection for shelf life was often, incidentally, a generation of selection against the volatiles that make a tomato taste like a tomato. The Amish never had that problem. They were selecting for their own table, for flavor, for nutrition, for what tasted best when you walked in from the field at the end of the day. Those selection pressures are baked into the seed. Every heirloom variety you plant carries the accumulated judgment of every farmer who grew it before you. Every hand that held the best fruit of the season and said, "This one." These are the seeds. The practical guide. Let me walk you through exactly how this works because it's something you can start this growing season with almost no investment. Step 1. Find your seeds. There are 3 ways to get open-pollinated heirloom seeds without paying commercial prices. The first is a seed library. Most county public library systems now operate seed libraries. You check out seeds at the start of the season, you return seeds at the end. Free. The second is a seed swap. Every state has active seed-saving communities. A quick search for your region plus heirloom seed swap will find them. The third is purchasing ones from a reputable source. Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds and Seed Savers Exchange are the 2 most respected in the country. Neither sells hybrids. Step 2. Grow for saving, not just harvest. When you grow heirloom varieties with the intention of saving seed, you make one different decision. You deliberately leave 2 or 3 of your best fruits on the plant longer than you'd normally harvest. For tomatoes, you want fully ripe, bordering on overripe before saving seed. For beans and peas, you let the pods dry on the vine. For squash and cucumbers, you leave them until the skin is fully hardened and the plant begins to die back. Step 3. Process and dry. Tomato seeds require fermentation. Place the seeds with their gel in a small jar of water. Let it sit at room temperature for 2 to 3 days until a layer of mold forms on top. Then rinse thoroughly and spread on a ceramic plate or wax paper to dry. This fermentation process breaks down the germination inhibitor in the gel coating. Every other vegetable I've worked with is simpler. Rinse, dry on a screen, done. The drying step is non-negotiable. Seeds that are stored before fully dry will mold. Give them a minimum of 2 weeks, spread on a flat surface at room temperature before packaging. Step 4. Store correctly. The enemies of seed viability are heat, moisture, and light. Cool, dark, and dry is the preservation formula. I use small paper coin envelopes inside a glass mason jar with a tight lid. I add a silica gel packet to control humidity. This setup, kept in a basement or refrigerator, will maintain most vegetable seed viability for 5 to 8 years. Some varieties, squash, cucumbers, stay viable for 10 years or more. Write everything on the envelope: variety name, the year you saved it, any notes on the plant's performance. One growing season from now, you will not remember which plant that seed came from, and that information is worth keeping. Step 5. Isolate for purity. This is the one step that requires some planning. Open-pollinated varieties cross-pollinate freely, which is how new varieties accidentally form and how your saved seed can drift away from the original. The rule is simple. Grow only one variety of each vegetable species at a time, or ensure adequate distance between varieties. For most home gardens, 50 feet of separation between tomato varieties is sufficient. Corn, squash, and brassicas require more care. The Amish manage this through community coordination. Different families grow different varieties, so that saved seed stays pure across the whole community. You may not have that network, but a conversation with a neighbor can solve most cross-pollination problems. The suppression story. I want to be precise about something. Nobody burned the seed libraries. There was no coordinated campaign to eliminate heirloom varieties from American agriculture. What happened was slower, quieter, and in many ways more effective. The hybrid revolution of the 1940s and 1950s was genuinely impressive agronomically. Hybrid corn varieties increased yields dramatically under industrial conditions. Land-grant universities, which received significant funding from agricultural chemical companies, shifted their research priorities toward hybrid development. The Cooperative Extension Service, whose county agents were often the primary source of farming advice for rural Americans, promoted the new varieties with institutional enthusiasm. By 1960, most American seed companies had stopped offering their open-pollinated variety lists, not because the seeds had failed, because the seeds had no intellectual property attached to them, because any farmer who grew them could save their own, because there was no recurring revenue in a seed that reproduced itself perfectly. The business model of modern industrial agriculture requires that seeds be inputs, things you purchase annually, not assets you steward and pass down. That reframing happened within a single generation. In 1975, a small group of seed savers in Decorah, Iowa, Kent Wiley and Diane Otwillie, started Seed Savers Exchange, after Diane's grandfather, a German immigrant, handed them his family seeds on his deathbed. Seeds brought from Bavaria, open-pollinated varieties that existed nowhere else. The exchange began as a simple newsletter connecting people who were saving seeds that commercial catalogs had dropped. Today they maintain a living seed bank of more than 20,000 varieties. Think about that number. 20,000 varieties. The average commercial seed catalog offers maybe 300 vegetables. The rest of that diversity existed only because people like Diane's grandfather kept growing the seeds their parents gave them, the way humans have kept food varieties alive for 10 millennia. The Amish didn't need Seed Savers Exchange. They never stopped. They never had to recover what they never lost. The legal question. You asked at the beginning, and it was the first thing I wanted to know. Is this actually legal? Yes. Saving seed from open-pollinated, non-patented varieties is completely legal. Always has been. It is the practice of 10,000 years of farming. There is no law against it. What is restricted is saving seed from patented varieties. Monsanto, now Bayer, won a landmark Supreme Court case in 2013, Bowman versus Monsanto, establishing that farmers who purchase patented seeds cannot save and replant them without a license. That case was specifically about patented GMO soybeans. It does not apply to heirloom open-pollinated varieties. It does not apply to seeds you saved from your own garden using public domain varieties. The USDA does not regulate home seed saving. The Plant Variety Protection Act protects specific certified commercial varieties, not public domain varieties that have been grown openly for generations. The seeds in my jar, German Johnson, Mortgage Lifter, Dragon Tongue, Glass Gem, none of them are patented. None of them can be patented. They predate the patent system. They belong to everyone. 3 years ago, I planted 14 heirloom varieties for the first time. I saved seed from all of them at the end of the season. The following spring, I planted entirely from saved seed. The first time in my adult life I had planted a garden without ordering a single packet. My seed budget that year was 0. My tomato yield was the highest I have ever recorded in 22 years of growing. I gave seeds away to 4 neighbors, a co-worker, and a woman at church whose grandmother used to grow a variety she had been trying to find for 30 years. I found it in the Seed Savers Exchange catalog and grew it out for her. Cost me nothing but time and a paper envelope. This is what seed saving actually is. Not survivalism, not ideology, not nostalgia. It is the most natural thing a gardener can do, completing the cycle that every farmer before the 20th century took for granted. Plant, grow, harvest, save, replant. The seed is not a product. The seed is a living thing that carries history forward, one growing season at a time. The Amish did not preserve these varieties because they were resisting the modern world. They preserved them because they worked, because the food was better. Because a seed you own is worth more than a seed you have to buy every year. That math hasn't changed. Before you close this video, I want you to do one thing. Find out if your county library has a seed library. Just search your county name and seed library. Thousands of them now exist across the United States, and the majority of them are free to use. If yours doesn't have one, a group in New Mexico started a seed library in a single afternoon with a box of envelopes and a donated seed collection. The infrastructure is minimal, the impact is not. Leave me a comment with the oldest food variety you've ever grown, or the one you wish you could find. I read everyone. The next video in this series is about a soil amendment the Amish have been adding to their fields since the 1800s that modern agricultural science just confirmed increases microbial diversity by 400%, and it's sitting in your fireplace right now. Stay close.